and I'm a little bit what's the word, not quite in the zone maybe. My baby has decided that the last few days really has been just very difficult to settle in the evenings, and he's decided that only mummy will do, which means that I haven't really spent my usual time this evening just preparing, but luckily I had done quite a bit of preparation in advance, so all is well, but that's why I'm a little bit late. So today is all about how to get help when it comes to postnatal depression, and in particular what you can do in advance to sort of reduce your risk of it, which I've talked about quite a lot already, but really this is about how to get help, how to set yourself up, or how to prepare in advance to get things in place so that you can do what you can to avoid it. And it's also going to talk a little bit about, if you do suspect postnatal depression, where you can get help, and some very basic little tips that can just help elevate your mood a little bit. It's in no way a solution to postnatal depression if you have it, but there are some very basic things that you can do on a daily basis that are effective, not only if you have depression, but if you just also feel a little bit low. So hopefully that'll be useful for everyone, really. So to start off with, if you suspect that something's not right, if you're feeling that, you know, you're feeling so low that you're not really able to look after your baby, or if you're having you know, thoughts that might be scaring you, the first thing to do is to go to your GP if you suspect something's not right. There's absolutely no shame in it. There's nothing wrong with going to get help from your GP, and your GP is the first place to go to. Apart from anything else, they will start off by running a couple of tests to see if it is something very basic going on physiologically, like whether maybe you've got low iron or thyroid hormones not working. These are all very, very easy to correct with the GP's help. So definitely start number one by going to the GP. Immediately after giving birth as well, try and get as much support as you can from your midwife and the health visitors as well when they come later. They're there to support you, so use them as much as they can. And when they ask questions about how you're feeling and so on, be really, really honest, because there's no judgment if you say, actually, I'm finding it really hard, or I'm quite anxious, I'm finding it really difficult to cope, because they will also be able to help point you in the direction of support, whether that is peer support or whether they feel that you need to be referred on to a health professional. But before giving birth, I think a really powerful thing that you can do to help prepare yourself is to learn about childbirth, learn what to expect labour and childbirth to look like, because we have this assumption based on, I guess, Hollywood and TV and shows like One Born Every Minute and Call the Midwife, and we have this very Hollywood image of what it's like to give birth, and that may not be what it's like. In fact, it shouldn't really be what it's like. It's quite a extreme version, I think, of childbirth. So learn about childbirth, learn what to expect, learn what's natural and what's normal, and also learn what are your rights. So if things don't quite go to plan, or if you're not feeling that you're being listened to and so on, you have rights, and if you learn about them, then you'll feel much more empowered to actually question what might be happening to you. Prepare in advance for the possibility that things might not go to plan. So quite often we write a birth plan, and we're encouraged to write a birth plan, but it's also a potentially good idea to write a second birth plan, maybe like a plan B, if say you're planning to give birth in a midwife-led unit and you're told that you need to transfer to hospital, then, well, what could you do? What sort of things can you put in your plan B that covers being in hospital? And also potentially if you're not planning on having a C-section, but you end up being told that you have to have a C-section, now what can you do to make that a good C-section? There is such a thing as a best possible C-section or a gentle cesarean birth. So if that's what you're interested in, look them up. And just by preparing yourself mentally, by writing a second 2 or 3 birth plans, might just help to reduce some fear out of it, because you're kind of regaining or still being in some sort of control, even if it's not exactly the plan that you had. So I think that's one of the best pieces of advice I ever had, actually, was to write a couple of birth plans with different scenarios. Again, before giving birth, gather your support system. So obviously, hopefully you've got a really great birth partner, but you know, do you need someone else? Could you perhaps do with a doula, or is there someone else in your family that could help? Whether that's actually in the hospital or in the birth center or at home, if that's where you plan to give birth, or just, you know, someone to be at home to clean the house and bring you some flowers ready for your return. Don't be afraid to ask people for help, and most people would be delighted to bring you flowers ready for your return. But think about who else can help. Who else, maybe not immediately after giving birth, but afterwards as well. Could you get a cleaner to come in? Would that be something that could really help in the first couple of weeks to take pressure off of you? And then after giving birth. So again, if things don't quite go to plan, if you actually feel that, you know, you found the birth really awful or really traumatic, don't keep it quiet. Talk to someone. Ask for a debrief. You're entitled to a debrief. So if things don't go to plan, or if you feel that you weren't listened to, you weren't in control, ask for advice from your consultant midwife or the specialist that you know was looking after you, or your midwives. But don't keep it to yourself. If things don't go to plan, speak out about it, because that kind of thing, you know, you might be like, oh, I'll just get over it, or it was just an awful thing that happened. Everyone has an awful childbirth. That's not true. And it can come back to revisit you later in life. You might find that, so, you know, I've heard of people who are diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder based on having a traumatic birth. So please don't just assume that, oh, all childbirth is awful and I'm just another one. If you found that it didn't go to plan and you felt that you were quite traumatized by it, please get a debrief. In terms of how you can look after yourself after giving birth, obviously as a nutritionist, I'm going to say this: number one, eat well. If you don't feel like eating, if you don't have much of an appetite, which could happen if you start finding yourself going into a potentially depression sort of scenario, try and have just really simple food that is easy to digest, like soups, smooth soups, and broths that are very, very nourishing but really easy to digest. You know, I often find that a really nice bowl of soup is actually a bit like having a really nice warm hug, and that sometimes could be all you need to lift your mood. Low levels of certain nutrients can really exacerbate or contribute to low mood and potentially later down the line depression as well. So you really want to make sure that your nutrient levels are kept in balance, check. A really simple one: have a shower. It can be so easy as a new mum, especially in the first week, to actually forget about looking after ourselves. But I tell you what, that first shower after giving birth, it's just magic. It's like the best feeling in the world. And yeah, try and have a shower every single day. Even if it means you just get straight back into your pajamas, just have a shower. You'll feel much, much better for it. Talk to anyone. Talk to your partner, sister, brother, parent. You know, go to a baby group if you can, to a breastfeeding group, and talk. You know, it might feel awkward talking to strangers, but honestly, talking to anyone, absolutely anyone, reduces stress, increases your oxytocin, which then decreases anxiety and depression. So just being able to share concerns and worries can have a very positive effect on you, on your mood. Another really important thing to do as early as you can, as long as you're feeling up to it, is to get outside in daylight. Now, again, daylight, especially earlier in the day and sort of around noon, really can lift your mood. It's designed to kind of make us feel, kind of being out in the daylight is designed to make us feel uplifted and energized and feeling like we want to kind of get on with the day. In the first few days after giving birth, even just get outside and drink a cup of tea in the fresh air. It's good for your baby as well to get a bit of fresh air and some daylight. You know, you can start to get them used to the idea of day and night time if they are exposed to daylight quite early on. So first few days, just get out, sit outside, or even just sit by a window if it's really depths of winter and you can't face getting out in the cold. Have a treat, even if that treat is just having a bath. Now, that might sound a bit pathetic, but honestly, in the first couple of weeks after giving birth, having a bath really felt like a luxury, because it meant someone else took the baby off of me. I could completely shut myself off. I would light some candles. I have some really amazing LED candles just in case it all went wrong. You know, maybe get some essential oils going, a really nice soundtrack, or read a book or something. And even if it only lasts 10 minutes before the baby needs to feed again, those 10 minutes will be just so precious. But if you feel like you can, you know, get a massage, maybe some reflexology, something else that takes you outside of your new role as a mother and remind you of who you are as a person. And even just some very basic deep breathing. Just take 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute. You can do 2 or 3 really deep breaths. Close your eyes, deep breath. Just for a couple of minutes can really help to elevate your mood and calm you down if you're feeling anxious and stressed out. But really, I really want to drum home, recognize if something's not right and ask for help. I don't know if you've caught any of my previous Facebook Lives, but this whole thing kicked off because I asked one of my mum's groups if you could rewind time, what would you do differently? And there were a lot of responses, but a good number said, I wish I hadn't been so proud and I had just asked for help with my depression. So please don't make the mistake of thinking, oh, I'm a bad mum because I'm depressed, I can't look after my baby, or whatever it is. Don't let that pride and shame take away from getting help, because once you get help, you will be back on the right route to recovery and to being able to go back to being who you want to be, which is, you know, a very present, very capable mother. So I hope that was useful. That was on how to get help if you suspect postnatal depression, or how to avoid it in preparing for childbirth and after giving birth. Tomorrow is the last day, and I'm going to go into a lot more detail about nutrition and the fourth trimester and maternal mental health. So I hope you can join me. It's probably the most important one from a nutrition point of view of these 7 days. So see you then. Bye.